in a car and gunned down an officer in his squad car while he was writing a ticket. In St. Louis, an officer shot twice in the face while driving in what police are calling an ambush. He's expected to survive. 2 other officers shot and injured, one in Gladstone, Missouri, the other in Sanibel, Florida. The victim killed in the San Antonio attack, identified as Detective Benjamin Marconi, and the suspect is still on the loose. We'll bring you any new information as we get it and talk later in the hour about what is fueling this war on law enforcement. Another Fox News alert for you on new developments at Trump Tower as President-elect Donald Trump's White House takes shape. All this after a big meeting over the weekend with former GOP presidential nominee Mitt Romney, a top candidate for the Secretary of State spot. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith. Happy Monday, everyone. Here today is Meghan McCain, host of Kennedy on Fox Business. Kennedy is here. Also from FBN, Dagan McDowell. And today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, Fox News correspondent Adam Housley is here, and he is outnumbered. Good to have you back. Housley's in the house.
I know. It's been tough to get out here. You guys have been so busy. We've been so busy, but it's nice to see you guys in person for a change.
Hey, good to
bring
see
a little bit of sunshine here to this cold.
Oh man, I tell you, it was 80 degrees when I left. Though it's raining there now, so
I got to twist a knife, man.
I know.
It is a cold day in New York City, that's for sure. All right, we are getting a lot of new details on how President-elect Trump's team is shaping up. His focus now shifting from national security to economic and domestic policy issues. He's meeting today with former Texas governor and primary rival Rick Perry, former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown, Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin, and Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. She was a Bernie Sanders supporter. All this after a weekend of high-profile talks with Mitt Romney, Rudy Giuliani, Chris Christie, and retired generals James Mattis. As it looks like Giuliani and Romney are high on the list for Secretary of State. Here's Vice President-elect Mike Pence.
They had a good meeting. It was a warm and a substantive exchange, and I know he's under active consideration to be the Secretary of State of the United States, along with some other very distinguished Americans. I know the President-elect was grateful that Mitt Romney came here to Trump National and spent some time and is willing to be considered for this important role at such an important time in the life of our nation.
All right, let's bring in Peter Doocy, live outside Trump Tower right now, as I just mentioned, on a very chilly day. Good to have you. What is the latest?
It is chilly. First day I've needed to wear a scarf in the last several months. But we have gotten word, Sandra, that from the vice president-elect that he's made some deals with some of the people that he's met with. We still do not know, though, what those deals are. We are still awaiting announcements on who will fill some of the vacant cabinet positions, which do include some of the highest profile positions in the U.S. government. Trump's schedule today includes sit-downs with the Democrat who bucked party leaders to back Bernie during the primaries. That's Hawaii Congresswoman and veteran Tulsi Gabbard, as well as Newt Gingrich, the former House Speaker, Elaine Chao, the former Labor Secretary and current wife of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Then there's Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin and Texas Governor Rick Perry. And we just heard from the winning campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, about exactly what the transition team likes those two for.
Energy for Perry.
Yes, or defense. I've heard his name mentioned for defense, energy. Mary Fallin, governor of Oklahoma, maybe interior. But again, it doesn't all need to lead to a position. It needs to lead to working together.
We also just got word that at some point this afternoon, the transition team is going to release a video with their legislative priorities come January. And topping the list of things to either clean up or get rid of are trade and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, then regulations they think have been hurting the economy and jobs, national security with a specific emphasis on cybersecurity, and then immigration along with abuses of visa systems and ethics reforms. Those are the things that Trump was really harping on while he was talking about draining the swamp in Washington, D.C. once he get there. But we did just get off a call with some members of the transition team. Trump will not be in D.C. or in NYC for Thanksgiving. They say he is going down to sunny Florida for a couple days to hang out at Mar-a-Lago with his family for the holiday. Sandra?
All right, Peter Doocy, thank you for the update from Trump Tower. Good to have you. Stay warm. All right, Adam, what do you make so far of the names being discussed? Some high-profile visits at Trump Tower over the weekend. Mitt Romney, obviously one of them.
Yeah, I thought the Mitt Romney one was very interesting. There's a lot of people that believe, people obviously were very surprised by that, especially with the words that were exchanged by both sides. For me, being a kind of a foreign policy guy and covering a lot of military stuff, I will say a lot of the guys and gals that I speak to in the military were really excited about Jim Mattis, Mad Dog as they call him. He is a soldier in the military. When you talk about leaders in the last few years,
Trump called him a general's general.
He's a general. Yeah, he did. And even before Trump mentioned that, if you talk to any guys in the field over the last 3 or 4 years, they'll tell you that his name always comes up. He's somebody that a lot of the men and women in the military really follow. And it's going to be interesting to see if he'll get that job.
And how are you? Are you being impressed at who he is assembling so far, and now who he's talking to? Because he's still got some big positions to fill.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show the wounds of primaries can be healed for the greater good after a general election. Mitt Romney especially, I don't believe he voted for him or endorsed him. So I like that both of these men are coming together and sort of putting the past in the past.
Let me remind you of some of the words that were exchanged. Okay. So he called Trump a fraud during the primary season, and he in turn called Romney a choke artist. And Pence, by the way, is confirming that he is being considered for Secretary of State. I mean, this would be a huge role in the Trump administration after they, quite frankly, just had some harsh words.
They have entirely different perspectives on foreign policy, though. If you remember in the 2012 debate against Obama, Romney's the one who brought up how dangerous Putin is. Obama called it a 1980s foreign policy. These are two different men with two vastly different views on foreign policy, as you brought up, Adam. And the question I have is, how do you reconcile two such different perspectives, especially when it comes to Russia?
And he would have to get in line with Donald Trump's view of the world, or the view that forms in this administration. But I just chuckle when you said interesting, because that's like down south. If they say, oh, that's different, it means it's terrible. But Mitt Romney, what is so fascinating is this guy, we kind of forget. He's a businessman.
Right.
He is a businessman who is schooled at fixing things that are broken. And if you look at what he did with the Olympics in Salt Lake City, there was a north of like a $300 million hole. And he came in and did an audit of the entire operation.
Yeah, it was also, the Olympics were also incredibly corrupt. And I think that's a side of the story that not enough people are focusing on is Mitt Romney's background.
And that's what I just want to finish. That's what Newt Gingrich said this morning on Maria Bartiromo's show, is that the State Department needs fixing. That's why that would make sense.
Well, absolutely. It does, and also it just goes to show you that the place is in a shambles even after Hillary Clinton's tenure. And I think there are a lot of people, even on the left, with, if you can overcome personality differences and philosophical differences by nominating someone like Mitt Romney for Secretary of State, it's also showing the left that you are willing to work with people who have disparate voices and backgrounds. And I think that's frankly very important. I was talking to a friend of mine who's an ultra leftist. I mean, patchouli so progressive. And this person said that they were a little terrified by the thought of someone like John Bolton or Rudy Giuliani running the State Department, but for some reason Mitt Romney was a calming presence for people. That he looks like a politician.
I just want to add really quickly, because there was a former German economics and defense minister who was on Fox Business this morning, and he said, yeah, everyone in Europe says anybody but Rudy, which makes me think, well, Rudy, because
they don't get
we're tired. Again, America first. We're tired of kowtowing to the Europeans and the rest of the world.
And you kind of hit on a little bit. First of all, I don't know if Rudy is really someone probably at the top of the list. I think maybe a situation you might find him get a different position. He was such a strong supporter of Trump, but is he somebody that would really be put in that position? I don't know if a lot of people behind the scenes may not necessarily believe that. Maybe he's better for Homeland Security or somewhere in that line. But I'm curious to see if it is Romney. I mean, what is our foreign policy?
Yeah.
I mean, really, the last 8 years, or the last 16 years in some respects, it's kind of all over the board. Our fingers are everywhere. So what is our foreign policy? I mean,
well, you have two men who are completely, on the surface, opposed to each other.
Right.
Can you firm that up with their two different points of view?
And is it going to anger his base by, quote, draining the swamp if you choose someone like Mitt Romney, who is, king of the establishment Republican? So I think you have to reconcile that with his core.
And you also have to reconcile quickly who's going to follow behind us, because the State Department employees, they're the ones that are going to be carrying out the U.S. policy.
All right,
and carrying knives for anybody involved with the Trump administration.
But not Blackberries.
We're waiting on any announcements that may come out of Donald Trump, the president-elect. All right, Vice President-elect Mike Pence saying Obamacare is going to be repealed right out of the gate after the inauguration. But the incoming Senate Minority Leader says Democrats will fight that tooth and nail. What to expect and whether Democrats are striking the right tone. And it sounds like President Obama is rethinking his plans to withdraw from politics after his term is up. He says he'll reserve the right to speak out if President-elect Trump's policies breach certain values or ideals, whether that's a good idea. And after the show, you can join our live chat by clicking on the Overtime tab, foxnews.com/outnumbered. Go to facebook.com/outnumberedFNC. You can chime in there as well. And of course, you can tweet us. We read them during the show. Be nice.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
It sounds like President-elect Donald Trump is going to take on Obamacare right away. He's long vowed to undo President Obama's signature health care legislation as soon as he's inaugurated, though he recently indicated he might keep a couple of parts of the law. But listen to Vice President-elect Mike Pence yesterday.
Decisions have been made that by the President-elect that he wants to focus out of the gate on repealing Obamacare. And beginning the process of replacing Obamacare with the kind of free market solutions that he campaigned on. From there, we'll work on issues ranging from ending illegal immigration, reviving our economy through tax reform, rebuilding the military, restoring the infrastructure of this country.
An Obamacare repeal is sure to spark a showdown with Democrats. Here's incoming Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer.
As you know, Democrats got a majority of the popular vote. Hillary did. So it's not a mandate. And when he's opposed to our values, we're going to go after him tooth and nail. For instance, we're not going to let him repeal Dodd-Frank or the rules we put in place to limit Wall Street. They're going to regret the day they tried to repeal the ACA.
Oh, Chuck Schumer. Okay, so Dagan, in my home state of Arizona, Obamacare went up over 100% in the premiums. It was the state hit hardest all across the nation. When people were saying that Hillary Clinton might win Arizona, this was the first thing I pointed to, and I was like, absolutely no way. Do you think there's hope that it will be repealed?
I don't think it's going to take the shape of a complete repeal, but I do think that this is one of the first things that they have to work on. And by the way, rule number one, Donald Trump won, and so did the Republicans with the coattails that he had. He doesn't kowtow to Chuck Schumer. 150 days, they can shove through whatever they want to, and they should. And they'll start with tax reform, I think, easiest thing to do. Corporate tax reform, maybe along with individual tax reform. They got a long list of things. Immigration reform, job creation, the wall, trade pacts. But I think that with this, they've got to focus on reducing the cost. They could easily just take the subsidy part of this and convert it to like a refundable tax credit, if you will. There's certain things that they can do piecemeal, but they've got it. But why do the Democrats act like, sorry, I don't mean to raise my voice, act like that this has been such a success for people? 25% increase in premiums, less choice, exchanges leaving states. People aren't even buying health care because they get nothing for their money. And this is a success that the Democrats are worried about going away.
I think you could argue that's why she lost, you know, because the bad news about Obamacare and former President Clinton coming out saying this is just the craziest thing in the world, that all happened before Director Comey's October 28th announcement that they were proceeding with the investigation. And, you know, she lost Pennsylvania because they also had a huge premium spike there. Now, the big question is, do you get rid of the pre-existing condition clause? Because if you don't get rid of it, if you keep it, you have to keep the individual mandate, which essentially means you keep two of the main pillars of the ACA in place. If that's the case, then Democrats can actually go in with Republicans and recraft the legislation in a bipartisan way, which is much smarter than this back and forth, heels dug in, scorched earth bickering that Schumer is doing right now. You know, and if President-elect Trump says he wants to keep pre-existing conditions, that is, again, a signal to the left that this is an area where we can work together. But if that's how they're starting this transition, it's bad news for the rest of the country.
What about just this was a money vote? I mean, a lot of Americans, they say Obamacare, but they don't really know everything about it. They just know that their premiums went up.
They know how it affects them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of my friend's father, he's a huge Democrat. He goes, yeah, even he was